It's a new year, guys, and with that comes a new wave of anticipated game releases. One of these titles, set to release on February the 2nd, is Warner Brothers and Rocksteady Studios' Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. This is set in an open world of Metropolis, and this is a third-person action-adventure, traversal-focused looter shooter, which is exactly why we had to play it. Think Borderlands meets Sunset Overdrive meets Destiny, and it features some fan-favorite DC heroes and villains, but not exactly how you would expect. In this game, the script is completely flipped, with the heroes being villains and the villains being heroes. You heard that correctly. The villains are the heroes. You'll play as members of the Suicide Squad, working together as Team X to defeat the Brainiac-controlled Justice League. Now, before we go any further, I do want to give a quick shout out to Warner Brothers for flying us out. This is not a sponsored video. However, they did reach out to us and brought our team to the studio to get hands-on with this game, which is the gameplay we're using right here. But this is our first open and honest impressions of the game. There are some pretty good things here, but I can't deny the blaring issues, which is what we're going to be diving in today. Now, as we mentioned earlier, Kill the Justice League is being developed by Rocksteady, the studio that brought us the beloved Batman Arkham series. Now, Rocksteady took a bit of a different approach with this new title, shifting from that melee utility-based combat that we were used to into a full-blown shooter. Their most recent title, Arkham Knight, was released back in 2015, and since then, the studio's two main co-founders, Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker, have both left the studio. This may or may not have been the reason behind the drastic shift in core gameplay, but Kill the Justice League still possesses that deep DC universe cut and all that Rocksteady love that we're familiar with. Now, this is a story-driven game that we could take on solo or, of course, invite friends to team up with for that co-op experience. One thing to note, though, if you decide to play solo, the other three characters will still remain in the party as AI-controlled support. However, you do have the ability to change among the characters between missions. The cutscenes gives a truly cinematic element to the story and offer a deeper look into the minds of the protagonists as they try to figure out how to be bad but do good. And I'd say that the character writing and voice acting here was pretty good. You'll find yourself becoming very interested in each one of these characters. Now, the four protagonists you'll start with are Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, King Shark, and Harley Quinn, each with their own individual kits, abilities, and skill trees. Unfortunately, we didn't get to experience all of the characters at the event outside of the tutorial, but we did get to deep dive into the Deadshot experience. Now, one of the cool things about Deadshot is he has an ult where he walks right up to the enemy, slaps them, and says, "Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth." It's crazy, dude. I couldn't believe they added that. Now, let's talk Metropolis. This area was built with a major focus on verticality, with your success relying heavily on how well you can master one of the game's unique features. It's traversal. Each character has its own distinct way of moving about the city. You got Deadshot's jetpack, Harley Quinn's grapple drone combo, Captain Boomerang's boomerang, as well as the Speed Force, and King Shark's super jump. You'll find out very quickly that trying to move about the city on foot is far from optimal. They did a really great job here with movement. Everything feels fluid once you get the hang of the mechanics and start tapping into the flow state of things. Now, all of the characters are said to have similar movement speed despite them having different mechanics, so you won't have to worry about getting left in the dust by any of your teammates. Now, out of the four characters, Deadshot's movement seems to be the easiest to get the hang of, while the other characters, such as like Boomerang and Harley Quinn, they do take some time to master. Now, let's talk gunplay. Look, when it comes to like third-person shooters that I've played in the past year that really set the tone, that have that high bar, Remnant 2 is like the first one that comes to mind. Now, let me just say, gunplay is not that refined. Like, don't think Remnant, think like Anthem, where essentially you just run in there and you're spraying with your weapon, you're throwing your abilities. I'm not gonna say that the gunplay isn't solid, but it's definitely not hitting that high bar. The reason why I say this game is kind of like Anthem is you are shooting from the air a lot. Now, the game has a unique mechanic used to replenish your shields called shield harvesting. You'll need to shoot an enemy in the leg and then take them out using your melee ability, allowing you to pick up shields that they've dropped. There's also a counter shot mechanic you can use to stun shielded enemies by firing a special shot at them. Your melee abilities act like finisher moves and can deliver a good amount of damage in a short period of time, but again, you'll need to rely heavily on gunplay to deal with that volume of enemies that you'll encounter. Now, each character also has an ult, which absolutely destroys hordes of enemies. Now, it's when you combine all these different mechanics along with your traversal that it creates, a generally entertaining experience, but it seemed that we were constantly being tasked with run over here, shoot this, now run over here and collect that. combat, which isn't awful. The fight sequences were pretty good, but it gets monotonous pretty fast. A bit more variety in the gameplay loop would be huge in keeping the replayability here at its max. The tasks here were all broken up by a number of different cutscenes, which is what really carried things, but we wish the gameplay itself contributed a bit more to the story. Now, during the preview event, we got to try our hand at one of the early boss fights versus the Flash, and we've got some mixed feelings on this encounter. While yes, we understand that the Flash is the fastest man alive, this did not make for the most exhilarating fight though. We found ourselves constantly scanning across the city, trying to put a few shots into the Flash before he teleported again, and repeating this over and over until we finally defeated him. And there wasn't much in terms of mechanics or DPS phases here, just simply shoot him when you can, and eventually he'll die. Now, a big complaint that I've seen online is that there is too much happening on the screen at once. Yeah, I know. This was actually a big pain when trying to find Flash. The city is full of enemies almost on every rooftop, in the streets, in the skies. When you got health bars, damage numbers, explosions, multiple gameplay prompts, the UI is incredibly over the top, and it can get overwhelming. Now, after the fact, we did have a discussion with the developers who did say you can disable things like damage values and health bars within the settings, so maybe that can dial things down a bit. But I would say the biggest concern with almost every game out there is you don't want the UI to become so cluttered that it ruins the immersion. That can easily happen here with Suicide Squad. Now, another complaint is that the city of Metropolis, at first glance, seems to already have been completely lost to Brainiac. The streets are completely empty of people aside from the enemies that you encounter, and ultimately takes away from what is a beautifully designed open world. There was one specific mission where we had to rescue a few hostages and escort them to safety, but aside from those 3 to 4 people, the city is dead. Now, I'm not talking like the day after dead, but barren nonetheless. Now, upon release, the game will come with dozens, if not hundreds, of unique weapons, melee devices, and traversal equipment to unlock, each with special traits and perks. And again, my looter side is really itching when I see this stuff, because this is supposed to allow for some creative build crafting. Now, one of the builds that Rocksteady spec'd us with was a sniper-based, critical hit, grenade-focused build. The traversal mod, Shooting Star, increases critical hit chance to 100% after hovering in the air for 5 seconds, even for those accidental body shots. The bulletproof grenade sniper rifle, which upon landing a critical hit will spawn a live grenade once every 30 seconds, but will do 100% more damage when it explodes. The deploy grenade will have all the attributes of the grenades you have equipped in your build. And having selected the paint bomb grenade, which will increase critical hit damage by 44% up to a maximum of a whopping 176% for 20 seconds. Guys, as you can see here, there's a lot of synergy from our weapons, between our equipment and mods. This is the type of build crafting that hooks me. Now, there are a variety of different afflictions that attach an elemental effect to weapons and other equipment. During the playtest, we were able to unlock the Deep Freeze affliction, which will freeze enemies solid. It's also worth noting that certain mods offer a piece bonus, which unlocks an extra tier of perks on a specific gear piece, depending on how many pieces of equipment you have equipped from that same gear manufacturer. My Destiny players think foundries. Now, Penguin, who is located in the Hall of Justice, will allow you to craft new weapons, as well as grenades, shield mods, and traversal mods for recipes you'll unlock throughout the course of the game. And if you get bored with any particular piece of equipment, or just looking to fine-tune the cohesiveness of your build, Penguin also allows you to overhaul any of your gear, therefore re-rolling all of its attributes. Now, post-launch, there will be a battle pass system featuring different outfits, emotes, and other customizable options. Each new season will come with a brand new battle pass full of free tiers as well as premium tiers that will be available via in-game purchase. Now, Rocksteady states that all of the battle pass items are cosmetic only and won't affect gameplay in any way. Now, since the preview event, there have been a few game leaks hinting at a couple potential game modes coming to Kill the Justice League in the future. But according to comments from reputable leaker Miller Ross, reported by Metro UK, Kill the Justice League will be receiving 2 new game modes for players to dive into after completing the story missions and other content. The first mode is suspected to be a horde mode called Raising Hell, which is said to be similar to what we've seen from the Call of Duty Zombie series. Now, guys, if this is executed well, this could be an extremely engaging game mode, and this would keep players like me in the game far after completing the main story. The second is said to be a 4v4v4 PvPvE game mode called QVK. Now, I know this sounds wild and also extremely chaotic, but this is leaning back on the game's co-op focused gameplay. This game type will have players working together to defeat AI enemies while simultaneously sabotaging the other teams. Now, it's also rumored that by playing QVK, players will increase their standing with a currently unknown villain after being pulled into multiversal rifts, which may lead to some intriguing new narrative components experience later on down the line. Now, if these rumors are true, Rocksteady may actually have a plan here to keep the game fresh and replayability at its max. Again though, only time will tell. Now, will I be playing the full scope of this game when it comes out? At this point, probably so, guys. I just need to see it through. It's a pretty fun game, but I would say that the story is the driving force. And outside of that, I don't really know how invested I'm gonna be in this live service game. Now, granted, there's an entire DC universe that Rocksteady can pull from. The possibilities there are endless. But just basing it off of my one boss fight with the Flash, Rocksteady's gonna have to do something else to spice up that gameplay. However, February 2nd will be here before we know it. I'll be giving it a go, and we'll see if Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League has what it takes. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.